Thank you again for joining Foster Strategies Group's Automotive Masterclass. Today in Transforming Automotive, we're taking on a topic that's near and dear to many of your hearts, digital marketing. You spent the money, the dealers, you got your inventory marketed right, it's all up there online, and the customers actually said, hey, I'm interested. And now, the biggest problem many dealers have is what happens next. In order to help us with this, we brought in Manager of Customer Solutions, Mike Davis from Maritz, to help us with this. He deals with hundreds of customers with these exact same problems every single day, and they have found ways to tackle that for you. Mike, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So Mike, you deal with hundreds of dealers across the country, and very individually, you're taking a look at the pattern that's happening with that exact consumer and the process going on inside the dealership. What's one of the biggest things that you see right away to let you know that the customer may or may not be having that journey that we intended?
We spend a lot of time looking at the individual customer records. So what we do is we open up our dealer CRMs and we help them understand, hey, how did this customer get to our either website or third-party site? Once they were there, what happened? What was the expectation they met? Once they submitted that lead, what were they hoping to get in return? And then what do we actually deliver? So we do sort of a post-mortem, a retro-looking view of that customer's journey and say, did they have a good journey or did they not? We think the customers tend to look for positives in dealers. They approach the process with a sense of optimism more times than not. But there's often a lot of common things that we do that drive customers out of the funnel and allow them to deselect us and select our competition out of frustration.
I would say that deselecting is not something that the dealer wanted to see happen, right?
No, you want to be in that consideration set all the way through the end. You want to be the kind of the final candidate that's there. And ultimately, customers are trained by Amazon and all these other providers of goods and services in our world that provide a frictionless path to transaction. I made 2 Amazon purchases yesterday without even thinking about it. It's so easy. Customers are being trained by all of the modern technology at our disposal to make sure that that process moves as quickly as possible. That's their expectation. And then when they hop into the funnel for buying a car, they're hit with something that's the inventory and a lot of the tools may be online, a lot of the research is online. The buying process is very much archaic compared to a lot of our modern shopping processes.
So what's the risk then? What happens to the consumer when everything else that they've been doing in their daily life was right at the click of a button, everything was, the groceries are at your door, the new electronic equipment. Hey, they're ordering some electronic equipment in this room right now.
Mm-hmm.
But when that happens to the customer, what are some behavioral actions or emotions that the customer goes through when suddenly there's a roadblock in front of them after a seamless experience doing everything else they were in the middle of?
Well, we like to think that friction can happen at all parts of the journey. So even at a very high level, if you're deciding which car that you want to purchase, from the manufacturer standpoint, they don't all equip their cars equally. So if you're looking for one specific feature, navigation, it may be buried in a package that makes it hard to find and hard to understand how I can get that one feature without having to get packages right along with it. They can be halfway down the funnel and be looking at different dealership websites, and they may be trained to understand what that package means and know that that's what they're looking for, but dealership websites maybe don't list packages the same way. And there can be friction when it comes to the point of actually contacting a store. So they may want to set an appointment, they may have specific questions that they want answered about a car, but because of processes inside the dealership, they may not be able to get a hold of someone who can actually answer their questions and move them closer to purchase. So at any point in that funnel, they can reject and they can back out and say, this experience was bad. It could have been because the dealer experience was bad. It could have been the website, it could have been the manufacturer, could have been any number of things, but the net is that they don't choose that dealership as a result of that friction. So we see, we try to take a very holistic view of it and then a holistic approach to understanding why is it that this customer didn't choose you. We ultimately don't want to be deselected, but if we can look at what part of the path we control as lead managers and work backwards from there to understand why the customer left us, then what we can do is do a better job next time of not letting the next customer who has a similar question leave us. And we can identify process issues that may be systemic that prevent us from converting that customer.
So post-mortem is really important, but you said something really even more important a minute ago. You were sharing that these customers came in from all different places and their experiences up until that point had been very different, potentially. Mm-hmm. Some are building a car, some found a piece of inventory on your lot that's perfect, some are actually trying to schedule an appointment to come in. So I think one of the most important things, tell me if you would agree or not, was that we just first of all find out what they need. at that point in time?
Yeah, for sure. Customers tend to tell us what they want. There's a comment box on every lead form to make it as simple as possible. And customers often type in that comment box specifically what they're looking for. There's a reason why those things are there, and there's a reason why customers use them. When we mystery shop dealers, we always put some specific comment in that comment box on any lead provider we work with, because what we're looking for is, can the dealership answer my questions? Can they understand that I'm an individual with a specific need? Can they listen to my story and help me purchase this as quickly as possible? And what we tend to find, and we did a mystery shop of over 1,000 dealers last year, we found that only 65% of responded leads actually got their question addressed. So that means 35%, I'm sorry, let me say that right, 65% of dealers did not respond to the customer question.
I was actually hoping it was the other way around. That still wasn't great, but I was hoping, I was pulling for the dealers there.
Yeah. So that means only 35% of dealers looked inside their CRM for a specific question that the customer asked and made sure to address it. So if I asked for, does this car have leather? Does it have navigation, sunroof, moonroof, premium audio? Only 35% of dealers will look at that and respond back with an answer to the question, yes or no, whatever, but they only 35% actually address it.
So it's real important for all of you who are out here to know that whether or not it's your job, it's real important that you can go back and track the customer path through your own CRM from whatever your perspective is. And this can be service directors, this can be finance operators, this can be sales managers, dealers themselves, it doesn't matter. Because very often you will see that the nugget was there. But we've seen some reasons that the client, or I should say, we'll call them the employee that chooses to take that lead very often is under a little bit of pressure to hit a time clock.
Yeah.
You know, like we want to shut off the clock, we want to stop the timer, we want to keep the clock from running. And so very often, while that's a good idea to have in the backdrop, that helps magnify some of the problems that we see with a poor initial response. It doesn't matter if it's fast, that is going to actually set the tone for the entire conversation in a much different path than if we just stopped, took a look at the notes that are in there and got started right and just took a deep breath. So that being said, I want to talk about timing for just a second. Can we do that? So there are a lot of different schools of thought. Even in this room, we got a handful of people here right now. We might have different opinions, but let's not talk about any specific metric any company or manufacturer specifically is put in place. We've got to remember they did this for a reason, because no one was paying attention. Back when I started, we were whipping those leads off of the fax machine. But so there was a reason that they started putting guidelines out there. But right now in today's marketplace, we know that speed's important, but if starting on the journey's right, and I've got to actually like be alerted that the lead has come in, I've got to stop, look at the note that's in there, or if there is one, maybe do a little bit of research, like, is this vehicle available? Because the worst thing is I say, yeah, it's available, and then it's not. We don't want to start letting customers down. But like, so in a real world, it's just you and me talking. We don't have thousands of people out here listening or anything. What do you think is a normal, acceptable time range that it takes to deliver a thoughtful, accurate, helpful response to the customer?
So we tend to look at the response time conversation just a little bit as splitting hairs because of a lot of what you just said, and I'll get to that. But typically, you want to make sure that you're staffed appropriately to be able to give a comprehensive, thoughtful first response in under 30 minutes. That doesn't mean every response needs to be sent out in 30 minutes. What it means is that you need to be staffed to have a capable, good response in 30 minutes overall. What we also tend to say is that we're kind of chasing our tail a little bit. So we have a lot of lead managers that run around responding to leads. They have lots of leads. They have lots of follow-up that needs to happen. But if we look all the way to the beginning, we follow up with customers so much because we do such a poor job of responding. If we did a great job of responding and actually answering the customer's questions at the beginning, we wouldn't have to do so much follow-up. If we answered their questions at the start and didn't push them out of the process by giving them a poor experience from day one, from day zero really, then we wouldn't have to call the customer so much to follow up for 90 or 120 days. In other words, we'd have fewer tasks. We'd have fewer things that are trying to borrow our time away from giving good customer responses and setting appointments in the first place. So if we took an extra 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get to that customer response and make sure that we have all of what, understand the response, understand their inquiry, understand everything that they're looking for in their vehicle, understand their journey, and give them a truly customized experience at the beginning. There's phone calls down the road that we won't have to make as a result of providing that comprehensive response in the beginning. So now we've made time for ourselves because we've done it. As my dad used to say, if you didn't have the time to do it right the first time, when do you have time to do it right?
So you heard it here.
Yeah.
Do it right the first time and save yourself a lot of time. So right now, this message is going right at dealers and right at general managers. Are you listening? Let's give them a second to listen real closely. Are you listening? Many of you are watching one metric very closely when it comes to your internet team's response. You're looking at the time. And some of you heard a time metric that was really low, and some of you get some accolades and high fives for, oh, great, you're below 10 minutes, you're below 5 minutes. But that's a measurement that may or may not be serving you well. That measurement alone might be actually costing you and your team hours and hours of fruitless effort after that first call doesn't get placed right. Okay, so GMs and dealers, did you hear us loud and clear? I think you should say it to him too. Go ahead and tell him.
If you didn't have the time to do it right the first time, when exactly do you think you'll have time to do it right?
So jot that down, do it right the first time. And make sure that when you're leading your team, it's important as a leader, and we want to help you with all this, it's important as a leader that you think about what you're saying to these folks. Many of you are told, hey, here's something to watch, like watch this time. But when you don't take a look at the work that then happens, because I literally can answer 15 leads in 10 minutes. I can answer 15 leads really horribly in 10 minutes for you and sell 0 cars. And that's not the goal. We want you to sell more cars to happy people that take less of your salespeople's time. So slow down to speed up, as a good friend of mine used to say. So slow down to speed up, do it right the first time. Okay, so now we've actually got some tools that will help us go in and take a look at what that journey is looking like. Tell me about some of those tools and how big brother is that for me if I'm in your internet department?
Well, we don't look at it as any more big brother than what's currently available today. So what we do is we spend a lot of time. I'm going to pause for a second while I cough. Since I know this is being recorded, we can do that.
And we'll just go, let's just reset.
Sure.
So go ahead and start with that thought that you had.
So we don't look at our tools as any more big brother than what we've typically had at our disposal. Within the CRM, we can always look at the customer record. If I'm a sales manager, I can always crack the CRM open and say, tell me about Jane Smith. What was her experience? Did we respond to her in a timely fashion? What did we send to her in response? Do we need to wait for that?
No.
Okay. So we can always.
That's okay. So let's just start with that whole thing about. Oh, come on, Laurie. It's not Big Brother. Just.
Is there somebody else that's
no, it's just us.
Okay. We were talking about Big Brother.
So just say
Got it. So at our disposal is nothing more Big Brother than has typically been there. If I'm a sales manager, I always have the right to crack open the CRM and see how my team is responding to inbound internet leads and what kind of job we're doing to make sure that our customers get the follow-up they need. And that's what we do. So what we do for our clients is we kind of joke that we're lead detectives on behalf of our clients. We open up their CRM and we look at individual customers and say, let's learn about Jane Doe's customer journey. Let's learn about what she's interested in, and let's try to find out if she got what she expected. And what we try to piece together for our dealer clients is kind of forensic scientists. We say, let's take a look at her customer journey in totality and decide whether or not we can understand why she didn't purchase a car from us. So if Jane asked a specific question about did this car have sunroof or leather, if they had specific financing questions, if they had leasing questions, whatever those are, we look to see were those customer questions answered. We also look to say, was it professional? Did we respond with a tone that matched our customer? Did we treat them with respect? Did we ask them the right questions in return? And what we find more often than not is that we don't. We missed something. We either didn't match their tone appropriately, we didn't understand exactly what their inquiry was, but whatever it is, we tend to find that there's customer questions there. We've yet to have a dealer flat out disagree with what our findings are. We've yet to be able to put together a kind of a forensic study of an individual customer and come back and say, I disagree with that. They typically look at it and go, yep, you're right. Now I see what I should have done differently with that customer. And that's where the rubber really meets the road. So we're at a path now. We've understood how this customer journey started, how it got brought to our dealership. We understood how we responded to it, and we understand we didn't do the best job. The question is, what do we do about it? How do we either change the process, change the people that are touching that customer, the next version of that customer that comes in the door, because someone's going to ask the same question down the road. How do we handle it? And how do we make sure that we tweak our processes to make sure that we handle it better next time?
Very good. So what Mike's telling you is it's real important that you understand why you even have the process that you have, and that you pay attention to it, and that you make sure that you're all getting behind it and actually reinforcing it with your team by virtue of taking a look at what you expected them to do. Now remember, there are real people in the meantime waiting. So when is the best time to start taking a look at this traffic that's come through with their hands up saying that they're interested in your inventory?
I mean, from a management level, it needs to be something you do every day. We encourage our managers to have email reporting sent to them every morning. And it may be something you don't want to do while you're enjoying your coffee first thing in the morning and getting caught up on email. But it is really important to understand what happened every single day. How many appointments did we set? How many leads did we get in? How many internet sales do we have every day? And it may feel overwhelming, but it's really important to have that number in your head of what your expectations are. So that you can adjust it as quickly as possible. If you notice a trend in traffic that's declining, if we've stopped getting leads from service A, B, or C, you need to know why, and you need to know with pretty short turnaround, right? So that's the biggest tool we tell our managers, to make sure that you're aware of the metrics every single day, and then also assign someone within your dealership that can be held accountable to everything that's happening within your CRM. We call this a CRM champion. It's not a revolutionary thought. My boss likes to say he wants one necktie to grab about this. And I enjoy that, because I think that's ultimately what we need with our technology, is one person that we can hold accountable to it and make sure that things get done when they're expected to get done.
Very good. So if you had one tip right now, we've been talking right to the managers a little bit. If you had one tip right now for the person that's actually receiving that traffic, what would you want them to be thinking about as they take a breath and get ready to interact with that customer?
Take a breath would probably be a pause, reflect on what the customer is asking you in the first place, to make sure that you have a thorough understanding of it. Make sure that you understand where they've come from and what their expectations are in response. And then address the specific customer. Don't consider them one in a long list of things that need to be checked off for that given morning, so that you can move on. Make sure that you're looking at them specifically, so that you can understand their journey and make sure that you give them what they want. Customers are using more technology like Carvana and other sources out there that kind of offer something that car dealerships can't, which is a more seamless buying process. So understand that our backs are eventually going to be up against a wall here. There's going to be more, that space is going to get more crowded in the future. If we don't think about how we can make life easier for our customers and give them the most valuable resource we can give them, which is their time, then we can consider these other competitors to our space. We're essentially playing into their hands with that. So
I'm in an internet department, and I actually have a question from a customer that I want to get answered for them, because I want to do this well. What should be the expectation internally for me to get a response from somebody at the desk?
Internally, we want to design processes that don't require a lot of desk interaction, because again, that's friction right there. If I'm asking a question of an internet manager, if I as a customer am saying, thanks for responding back to me, thanks for answering my questions, and I have one more for you. Tell me about the lease terms. I saw 3.9 APR online. What are the terms of that? We don't want to create a system where individual salespeople have to go back to the desk to get answers and then drive back to the customer.
Are you telling me you're actually thinking about empowering the people?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there's no reason. Again, think if you're a customer, and think if you're purchasing anything online, would you? I hate to use the vernacular of Amazon, but Amazon doesn't have to do that. Walmart.com doesn't have to do that. Best Buy doesn't have to do that. None of these virtual retailers that are providing good customer experience have to go through these rungs of authority to make sure that the pricing is there. It ultimately, to be honest, it shows a lack of transparency to the customer, that prices aren't just published and they're getting the same deal that anybody else could be getting. So think like a customer yourself, because we all are customers ourselves, and think if we would appreciate that process. If there's anything internally that prevents an individual from responding back to a customer in a timely fashion with transparent pricing, eliminate that. Find a way to move that process away, clear out the gap there, so the customers can get what they're looking for as quickly as possible. in a transparent manner.
That's going to be hard for some people because some dealerships still want to operate like, I want to control the whole conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you navigate that conversation with someone who maybe feels like they've been pretty successful in the past with the outcomes? How do you navigate having that conversation and showing them that there might be better results around the corner?
Well, I think the industry is going to change whether we like it or not. And like I said, Carvana and other, kind of virtual retailers that do what they do, they're coming and they're setting a tone for what customer expectation is going to look like. So we can either be out ahead of it, or we can trail behind it and have to change, sort of against our will. The smarter retailers out there are finding ways to get out ahead of this curve because they see it coming and they understand that, customers are expecting something entirely different than it was 20, 30 years ago. So, as uncomfortable as the change might be, we need to be ready for it because it's coming.
So as much as we've been talking about the actual e-lead today, we know that the backbone of all of this is the phone, because we're always trying to drive them to get to the telephone, to get on the phone and make that appointment, or we're texting. So this is so important right now that we're talking about this customer journey, because I've answered the lead with my fingertips, but now I need to actually dial and leave the message, because right now that's where I'm going to try to reach out as a human, a voice-to-voice contact. What tips do you have for making that initial call out that will help strengthen that first response, even if the first response may be missed? Do you have time for recovery? Are the customers forgiving?
Well, we actually encourage calling first. There's any number of things that in written communication, I think we all have social media accounts now, and we know that when seen in text, words can sometimes take on an entirely different meaning. Nothing replaces a phone conversation. Now, we also recognize that a lot of customers today would prefer not to communicate over the phone. Millennials prefer text over phone, I think on a 2-to-1 level. So we need to understand that. That is certainly where the industry is skating towards. But nonetheless, picking up the phone first and trying to clarify any of those points is far and away the best venture there.
Mike just laid another tip right at your fingertips to some of the managers who may not be millennials. If your sales associate is connecting with a customer via text, does that mean it's bad? Does that mean they're goofing around, or does that mean they're actually possibly moving the metal down the line?
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say to all general managers listening is make sure that your CRM is turned on to allow your team to text through your CRM. So just like a phone call that needs notes, or a completed phone call or task that needs notes listed in the CRM, so we understand what happened to that customer when we spoke with them over the phone. Text message is the same, unless they're going to copy and paste every single text message over into the customer notes, and they're not. Make sure that I think your major 4 or 5 CRMs can have a component of texting built into it. So use that as the conduit. Make sure that all text message communication happens through the CRM portal, so that we don't lose any of it. And also make sure that we stay compliant. The legal landscape about texting is a little bit murky. So I would tell all dealers, err on the side of caution. Use your CRM vendor's tool because they have one built in there, and it'll unsubscribe the dealer or the customer from text message updates if they choose to do so that you don't get in trouble with the law. But yeah, customers want to communicate over text. The last 2 cars that my family has bought, as the text message has driven the conversation for sure. It is just what customers on the go want to see. So if you're not texting, and we know that I think I'll have to look at the statistics. I want to say only about 1/3 of the dealers on our 1,000 mystery shop study we did last summer, only about 1/3 of the dealers utilize texting. So there's a lot of room to grow there.
Big opportunity there. Yeah. And also just dropping this in, the millennials like to text, but also very often some of your older demographics want to keep the conversations virtual and want to stay at a distance. They don't want to come in, whether it's health reasons or they don't want to feel like they're in a pressure situation. The more helpful you are to those that are maybe a few years older than you in this digital environment. So don't make assumptions, right? Everybody's connected nowadays.
For sure.
Now, you were sharing earlier that at Maritz, you have a 3-pronged process to going through and discovering that customer journey as test points to see how are things going. So can you tell us about those milestones?
Yeah, so point number 1, and this is a little bit of our secret sauce because this is what we do for dealers, is we're the forensic scientists, the lead detectives. But step number 1 is understand your sources. So all of these sources you're paying for, all the tens of thousands of dollars per month that you're spending on driving traffic into your CRM, understand the expectation customers have when they hit the submit or claim now or whatever button it is that's on the site. That sets the tone for what the customer wants to hear in return. That tells you what you should be doing to respond. So understand all those. That's step number one. Number two, look inside your CRM and understand if you've met those expectations. If they wanted to check availability, did we discuss availability? If they asked to schedule a test drive, did we give them times or suggest times or ask for a time where they could come in and test drive a car? If they wanted, get your e-price now or get your best price, is that what we're sending them? Are we sending them something that answers the specific questions that they're asking? And I talked that to death, but leather, sunroof, specific amenities, are we helping to educate them in the way that they've asked?
Plus, you want to sell to sizzle.
Yeah, for sure.
Not to stake. If people are excited about something, join in with them.
Absolutely. So that's step number two. And then step number three is learn from what you find. You will find something. If you do this, if you pick any lead at random today, I guarantee that you will find something that didn't go right in the eyes of that customer. You will find some opportunity that you have to do better next time. So step number three is, what are you going to implement today to change your processes to make sure that next time that exact customer comes in, that they don't experience that friction?
I was working with Sue Jacobson up at White Bear Lake Ford when she was still there, one of the most successful Ford dealerships in the country, at least at that time. Hello, Sue, if you're out there. And what they would do, they would even put the leads right on the wall for everyone to see. And the powerful thing about that was when we can be transparent, and we had talked about the 5 dysfunctions of a team and having, no fear of conflict and being in a trusting environment, when we can all stop all that pretense and the fear that comes with managing systems that we're not sure what we're managing and managing them to the wrong metrics. She was able to go through with her entire digital team, which she had 2 digital managers and a team of about 13 associates. And we were able to go through and take a close, careful look, I like your word forensics, at what happened and why. And as a group, they were able to dialogue what else could have been said. And so it wasn't a sales beating, it was a helpful sales meeting. And you wound up seeing some really good energy come out of that and suggestions. And it gave people the ability to look at their work from an outside perspective too.
Yeah.
So do you include the salesperson in any of these conversations? Do they get to see this work that you're doing?
Yeah, we actually record it on video. So is our forensic scientists, our performance managers will log into a dealer CRM and they'll record their thoughts on video. And they'll look at it from a customer perspective, not to an individual salesperson level. So what we're doing is we're showing the entire team is, hey, let's look at Jane Doe. Let's discuss what could have gone better with Jane and what we could have done to convert her. And then we move on to John Doe or Jack Doe as we go down the line. And we share that video with everybody. We say, okay, we found a handful of things that we as a team can do a better job of to close business next time we get these exact customers. And we share it as kind of a peer collaborative session. It's not intended to be a beating, and we certainly aren't pessimistic in our approach to it. We tend to look at the positive saying, there's a lot of room for improvement here, and I think that we can do a better job. Customers who tend to come to us are dealers who want to improve. So they're not interested in a team flogging. What they're interested in is, we've got a good team. Usually we have, almost all the time we have a good team in place. We just need to take it to the next level and make it future ready.
And although it may sound like a different topic, actually one of the things we're going to be talking about extensively here is talent in the workforce. And right now you have the people in front of you that they wanted to work for your company, they wanted to be in the department, and we just need to help them and give them the best tools right now that we have as we're approaching 2020 here. So it's important that as leaders that are listening today that you know what the most current the tips and approaches to dealing with these customers are. You know how to manage this team. Maybe some of the folks out there are great people, but the person that they learned digital marketing from was the guy that was there 5 years ago, and he learned it from a guy that was there 5 years ago and 10 years ago with me with a fax machine. So the game has changed. The rules are different. The customers have changed drastically. Their expectations keep changing. So make sure you're keeping yourself up to date with the most current ways to maximize what your team's doing and hang on to those employees and improve their performance. Everybody wins.
Without a doubt. Yeah, we like to say make training a requirement of handling internet leads. Your CRM is going to be different 3 months from today, 3 months in the future from today than it is right now. And that's a good thing. That means your CRM company is innovating on your behalf, which is good. That's what you pay them to do. But as a result of that, you need to stay on top of it. And you need to understand features that are added and how it can simplify your life and how it can deliver a better experience for your shoppers. So make that training part of the requirements of handling internet leads. It's not a bad thing. It makes you a better lead responder, and it gives you a higher chance of sale.
Wonderful. Mike's been around automotive for a long time. We were comparing notes on some of the similar steps in our journey. Mike, if you just had one piece of advice or a thought to give to the leaders out there, people that are leading teams, people that are leading dealerships, and this even trickles over to the vendor space, they get leads also. What would you want to say to them was something from your mind that you thought every leader should know?
I would say that internally we use the phrase "eat our own dog food," meaning that
Did you just say eat your own dog food?
Eat our own dog food.
Eat your own dog food.
Yeah. So what we tend to look at is our own processes, reflected on how we as vendors handle our dealer customers. What experience do we provide our dealer customers in the sense that we're coaching them to provide a better experience for their customers? So that forces us very often to reflect on how we present to our dealer customers and how we kind of present ourselves professionally. So we often have to ask ourselves if what we're telling our dealer clients to do is the same thing that we internally would do, and would we change our processes as a result? And we frequently do. So we frequently are in a situation where we need to update what we're doing or reflect on how we're doing it so that we can match what we're telling our dealers that is the best practice of our customers out there, because dealers are customers just like your customers are. So.
Transforming automotive is possible, but it's one conversation at a time, and it's one step. It's taking a look at one piece of the process, taking a look at your people differently than ever before. I want to thank you and the team at Maritz. We are here live in their office in St. Louis today. They actually have a bridge that goes across to another building. It's a really cool campus if you ever get a chance. But you do a lot of great work for manufacturers, and translate that back to the dealerships. If there's one thing that you wanted to tell us that you're working on right now that you see coming down the pipeline for dealers, what might that look like?
Yeah, I think being future ready is important. And as I mentioned, Carvana and their competitors out there in the space that are trying to deliver that frictionless environment. Take one word, if you've heard nothing else I've said, is understand friction, and understand the impact that friction can have on shoppers. Think the next time you purchase something, look around for the friction that you experience, because nothing is frictionless, and we all just want to get closer to it. But we all experience it every single day. Anytime you have to call a utility, or anytime you have to call an airline about any small thing, and a lot of them have improved, but you still experience friction. And look at that as a process manager and say, what could be better about this process? The sharper your brain gets at that, the more you'll understand what customers are really looking for and how we can make it as impressive and seamless as possible so that we convert that business as quickly as we can.
That's terrific. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time today. Keep staying tuned to Transforming Automotive. Mike will be back, lots of other people from his team, and many, many other people will be contributing, industry experts from around the country that want you to have the best and the latest tools and insights right at your fingertips. So thanks for joining Transforming Automotive, another Automotive Masterclass series from Foster Strategies Group. We'll see you next time. Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you.